In Arizona, real estate, the foundation of every agency relationship rests upon the concept of fiduciary duty. A fiduciary is more than a representative. They are a trusted professional, legally and ethically obligated to act in the best interests of their client. Black's Law Dictionary defines a fiduciary as someone who is required to act for the benefit of another person on all matters within the scope of their relationship. One who owes the duties of good faith, loyalty, due care, and disclosure. These duties form the moral and legal core of the relationship between a real estate licensee and their client, shaping how the licensee must think, act, and communicate throughout the transaction. Arizona law recognizes fiduciary duties as both statutory and ethical obligations. They are reinforced in ARS Section 32-2153 and further explained through Commissioner's Rule R4-28-1101, which requires every licensee to protect and promote the client's interests while dealing honestly with all parties. A fiduciary relationship in real estate is one of trust, confidence, and utmost good faith, qualities that distinguish professional representation from ordinary business dealings. The first fiduciary duty is obedience, which requires the agent to follow all lawful instructions given by the client. This means that if a seller instructs the agent not to accept offers below a certain price, or if a buyer directs the agent to avoid submitting offers on specific properties, the agent must comply, so long as the instructions are legal and ethical. The duty of obedience does not permit following unlawful directions. For example, if a seller asks the agent to refuse offers from buyers of a certain race or religion, the agent must refuse. As such, instructions would violate the Federal Fair Housing Act, Section 42, United States Code, Section 3604, and ARS Section 41-149-1.21. True obedience exists only within the bounds of legality and professional ethics. The second duty is loyalty, often described as the most fundamental of all fiduciary duties. Loyalty means placing the client's interests above the agent's own, even when doing so may result in personal or financial sacrifice. Under R4-28-1101, a licensee must never advance personal gain, commission, or advantage at the expense of their client. For instance, if a licensee learns of a property that would better suit their client's needs, but is listed by another brokerage, the agent must present it, even though the commission split may be less favorable. In the landmark Arizona case, Barnes v. Lopez, 1985, a broker who failed to disclose competing interests and acted for personal gain was found to have breached fiduciary loyalty. The court reinforced that a fiduciary must serve the client's interests with absolute good faith, undivided loyalty, and impartiality. The third fiduciary duty, disclosure, obligates the agent to share all material facts known about the property, transaction, and any information that could affect the client's decision-making. Arizona's R4-28-1101B requires licensees to disclose all known facts that might materially or adversely affect the consideration or decision to proceed with a transaction. For example, if an agent knows that a home has an unpermitted addition, or if a property is in a flood zone, this information must be disclosed to the client. Disclosure extends to facts about the market, the opposing party's motivations, when lawfully known, and any potential conflicts of interest. Non-disclosure is one of the most frequent causes of disciplinary action by the ADRE because it undermines the client's ability to make informed decisions. Confidentiality is another cornerstone of fiduciary duty. It requires the agent to safeguard all information given by the client, except where disclosure is required by law. This duty applies to all non-public information, such as financial status, motivations, or personal circumstances that could harm the client if revealed. Importantly, confidentiality continues even after the transaction closes or the agency relationship ends. A licensee may not later reveal a former client's private information to another party, even if doing so could secure future business. For example, an agent who previously represented a seller cannot later disclose to a buyer that the seller had been willing to accept less than the final sale price. Maintaining confidentiality is a continuing obligation that protects the trust inherent in the agency relationship. The duty of accounting requires licensees to properly handle and account for all money, documents, and property entrusted to them. Under R4-28-802, brokers are responsible for maintaining accurate records and ensuring that all earnest money deposits, rental funds, and escrow documents are properly managed. Accounting also involves keeping the client informed about financial timelines, risks, and obligations throughout the transaction. For instance, if a buyer's earnest deposit is due within 5 business days, the agent must communicate that timeline clearly and follow up to ensure compliance. Failing to account for or properly handle client funds can result in both disciplinary action and civil liability. Finally, reasonable skill and care require that a licensee act with the level of competence, diligence, and expertise expected of a professional in the real estate industry. This includes understanding market conditions, explaining contractual terms accurately, and ensuring that clients receive all relevant information to make informed decisions. The duty of care also extends to recommending professional assistance when matters exceed the agent's expertise, such as suggesting an inspection, appraisal, or legal review under R4-28-1101. Failing to advise a client to seek appropriate professional help when necessary may constitute a violation of the standard of care. For example, if an agent suspects a structural defect but tells the buyer not to worry about it instead of recommending a qualified home inspector, that agent has failed to exercise reasonable skill and care. Together, these fiduciary duties, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable care create the ethical framework that defines professional real estate practice. They ensure that clients receive honest, informed, and diligent representation in every transaction. Breaching any of these duties not only exposes the agent to ADRE, disciplinary action, but can also result in lawsuits, financial damages, and permanent loss of reputation. Review summary. Fiduciary duties represent the highest standard of professional conduct in Arizona real estate. They require agents to act with honesty, loyalty, diligence, and care in every aspect of representation. Obedience demands following lawful client instructions. Loyalty requires prioritizing the client's interests above all others. Disclosure ensures all material facts are communicated. Confidentiality protects private information even after closing. Accounting mandates proper handling of funds and documents. And reasonable skill and care uphold professional competence and judgment. Violations of these duties under ARS Section 322.153 and R42-81101 and ARS Section 14-13115 can result in ADRE sanctions, civil liability, or license revocation. Discussion. Why is the duty of loyalty considered the cornerstone of fiduciary relationships? Answer. Because loyalty ensures that the client's interests are always placed above the agent's, maintaining trust and good faith throughout the relationship. How long does the duty of confidentiality last? Answer. It continues indefinitely, even after the transaction closes or the agency relationship ends, unless disclosure is required by law. What are examples of failing to meet the duty of reasonable skill and care? Answer. Providing inaccurate information, neglecting to recommend professional inspections, or failing to meet industry standards of diligence and accuracy. Closing remarks. Fiduciary duties distinguish professional real estate agents from mere intermediaries. They represent the trust placed in licensees by their clients and the ethical backbone of every transaction. By practicing loyalty, care, honesty, and transparency, agents not only comply with Arizona law, but also elevate their reputation as professionals, worthy of confidence and respect. Upholding these duties is not just a legal requirement, it is a reflection of the highest ideals of service in real estate.